So welcome to Internet Crime Report. My name is Joseph Dowdy, and I'm an internet expert, an author, and also a reporter. And I am with Jane Hitchcock here. She's the star of our show. She is a cybercrime expert and author. Jane, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Shall we wrap up the past week in the internet crime area?
Yeah.
So I think that one of the big topics that has been going around now for, I think is it like 2 weeks now, Karen Klein?
I think it's about 3 weeks now, actually. It's been about 3 weeks, since it all started.
Would you like to kind of...
It's a short amount of time.
Yes, it is. Well, on the internet, that is a lot of time.
That's true.
You want to tell people what, if they're not familiar with who Karen Klein is or why this has anything to do with internet crime, could you just recap for people?
Sure. Karen Klein is a 68-year-old woman who was a bus monitor for school out of New York. And she, as a bus monitor, she sat in the back of the bus. And I guess she'd been kind of bullied by some of the students, but she kind of just let it roll off her back. And then this one day, it just got really nasty. I mean, so far as one girl said that she would stab her in the stomach. Another boy said that her family killed themselves because of her. And it turned out she actually had a son who committed suicide 10 years ago, and one of the other students had taped it on his cell phone and then posted it on YouTube, and it just went viral, and I watched it, and it was just horrifying watching her trying to keep her composure, but then she finally did start crying because of it all. And this one man out of Canada named Max Sedorov went to Indiegogo.com, which is an online petition or an online donation site, set up an account, and was hoping to get $5,000 for her so that she could go away on vacation. And as of, I guess, a couple of days ago, it's up to $678,000. And she says she's going to retire on it and donate some of the money to Down syndrome and autistic organizations, because her grandchildren, 2 of her grandchildren have those. But she also, even though she received apologies from 2 of the boys, she really wasn't happy with one of them. One of them she felt was heartfelt, the other one she didn't. She did file criminal charges about it, but thankfully last week, I believe it was, all of the students that were involved have been suspended for a year. But because the school district still has to provide some education, they're going to a district re-engagement center, which is probably like, the big scarlet S, on your chest right there. Plus, I think it's 50 hours of community service. Plus, they can never ride the school bus again for the rest of their school lives. And, it's just one of those things where some people said, well, a year is a long time. But you know what? These kids deserved it. They were really, really nasty. And hopefully this will put off other kids from doing the same thing, not only to bus monitors, but to other kids.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of things that go into this. I mean, it seemed to me with the video that they were trying to kind of show that they could make the bus monitor cry. I think that was like their goal, and they were just as mean and nasty as they could. And it, probably wasn't like they were just bullying her just for the point of bullying her, but it was kind of like they wanted to, try to make a video about making her cry. And it's like, if you haven't seen it, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
It's really horrible.
It is. And, one news reporter wrote just yesterday just saying that it's a form of elder abuse. And you see a lot of kids and teens who are just so disrespectful to older people, to seniors especially. And when I was a kid, I never would have even thought of doing anything like this, because my mom would have killed me, honestly. It's just kids these days have gotten way out of hand.
Yeah, and but I think that this is good for a lot of reasons, and essentially, the real thrust of this is that it's about internet crime. I mean, this was something that was bullying that took place, and who's to say that part of this wasn't basically for these kids to show how powerful they were, that they could make this person cry and like, oh, look what we did, and it's essentially a sort of bullying mentality that they can get away with really being mean to people and using the internet to try to show how powerful and popular they can be by doing this. And so it brought them obviously a lot of unwanted attention and not exactly what they were expecting. But thank goodness, it seems to me that the repercussions were sufficient for I mean, I'd hate to have to take my kid to school every day. If they did something like that, it would be a daily reminder all throughout high school about, why, they're not riding the bus anymore. So I like that. That's really great. And so,
it makes me. I was just going to say, it just makes me wonder if there were other kids either on the bus or at the school who were also bullied by these same kids. Because if they're doing it to an older woman, you know that they're probably doing it to somebody else. And to think that, to take that video and put it up on YouTube, that there would not be repercussions just shows how alienated, I guess you could say, that kids and teens are these days when they do videos like this. They think they can post them and nobody's going to report it. It's like, well, duh, hello.
Yeah, and I think that obviously there was a bus driver that may had been able to step in and say something, but I would imagine that since I seem to remember something about how in the past couple days before this event, they started picking particularly on the bus monitor. And I imagine they probably started with the bus driver first, and then, the bus driver wasn't doing anything about them because they're bullies, and probably, they couldn't do anything about these bullies. And so then they ended up going to the bus monitor. So, who knows all of the dynamics that led up to the event itself. But it just goes to show that, bullying left unchecked just grows. And I think that you have a number of recommendations for kids who are experiencing bullying, whether it's on the bus or whether it's not, or whether it's on the computer. Obviously, we know lots of stories of Facebook bullying, and that's one of the reasons why we have the show, is to provide a resource for people to know what's going on in the world of the internet in terms of crime, online abuse. And, Jane, you originally became involved in this area because you were a target yourself. And so if you could say a little bit real quick, this is like our first episode of doing this, it'd be great if you could kind of recap how you got involved in this in the first place and what led you to become an expert at this.
Well, it began back in 1996. It was the fall, and I was on a writing news group, and I had just moved from Okinawa, Japan, and I was looking to get a book published over here, and there was a so-called agent that was posting on the writing group, and I asked about this, if anybody had heard anything, and a lot of the other writers on the group were kind of wary about it, and so we began this discussion, and I started getting emails from some writers who had actually gone to this agent, sent in their manuscript or their proposal, and ended up having to pay reading fees and contract fees and other fees. And agents don't do that. They take a percentage when they sell, to a publisher. So it started looking really fishy, and I called the New York Attorney General's office, because that's where this agency was supposedly located at, was in New York. And they said, well, we need either more victims or a larger amount of money that's been scammed. And so I posted on the group saying, if you paid money to these people, let me know, there might be an investigation. And that was around September, October, and mid-December, somebody began impersonating me online, posting to a bunch of different groups. It didn't matter what they related to. One was like the beer group and said, you're a bunch of drunks. I'm Jane Hitchcock, and I know what I'm talking about. Wow. And then when I guess that didn't get the reaction that they wanted in January, they started posting, again as me, went to controversial and sex-related groups saying that I was into sadomasochistic sex, was doing research for my next book about fantasies, and that was spelled with a PH, which drove me nuts being a writer. And not only said, contact me here on, miscellaneous.writing, which is the name of the group I hung out on, but also listed my home phone number and my home address, and I started getting phone calls. And it was really scary, because I thought, if people are going to call, what's going to stop somebody from showing up at the door?
Right.
And other friends online began helping me get the messages removed, and we started, and that's when I learned how to trace emails. I had no idea about any of this before then. These people also went to the University of Maryland, University College website where I worked, and began going and finding any contact emails or comment forms on the website pretending to be me saying that everybody at UMUC were a bunch of idiots, and I was going to quit because I was powerful and rich. And thank goodness I worked for the computer department, because my boss, Art, got a call from the president of the college, the university, saying, "Who's Jane Hitchcock?" Wondering what's going on. And they actually helped trace the messages back. And when they traced back to New York, all of a sudden it became pretty clear who it was, but I still had to prove it was them. And luckily I found a lawyer online who was able to work with me on a contingency basis. And we did end up tracing it back to them. Went through 10 years of back and forth in court. In the meantime, the Attorney General's office won by default because they never showed up in court for them. Then the U.S. Postal Inspection Service got involved because a lot of people paid through the postal mail. And it was a husband and wife team, and the husband got jail time and probation, the wife got probation. But it took me 10 years to get any justice, and that's how I got into this.
Right, and I seem to remember that back then there probably weren't enough laws sufficient to deal with these kinds of people, and that was one of the things that you were involved with early on, was kind of helping to pioneer some protections and rights for people through the establishment of some sort of laws against that sort of behavior.
Yeah, actually, we lived in Maryland at the time, and they were in the process of trying to pass an email harassment law, and it had failed the first time. But then when local media, Washington, D.C. and that area began writing about what had happened to me, the representative who was introducing this law had me come and testify, and we finally got it passed. So Maryland became the first state in the country to pass an online-related law, I guess is the best way you could put it. The word cyberstalking really hadn't been invented. It was kind of coined because of what had happened to me, and then after that, we started seeing more states pass laws, and I would try to provide either in-person or written testimony. And actually now in the state where I live, Maine, I helped co-write and pass the law here.
Okay. Now, for people, since you've been down that road, for people who might be in a situation where they're being harassed online, you are a resource for that, and you have a nonprofit that helps people, yes?
Yes, it's called Working to Halt Online Abuse. It's at haltabuse.org, and then we have a kids and teen division for people under the age of 18, and that's at haltabusektd.org. We provide free help. We keep you anonymous. We don't contact the bully or the stalker, and we try and help you resolve it before it becomes a really bad situation.
And so you do have a lot of advice. I know that you go and you speak in different places with law enforcement and high schools, and you do talks, and you try to help people who might be in situations. And you also talk awareness, and you also talk about prevention and being able to act. And so what are your basic tips for anybody who might be stalked, whether it's online or bullied online? What are your basic tips for that?
Well, the same tips apply for online or offline. And, I actually last year was the first year I had to speak to fourth graders, so they're getting younger every day. But the first thing, I try and tell them is you need to find somebody to talk to. If it's not your parents, find another adult, an older, sister or brother, or maybe a friend's parents, or find somebody that you can talk to, your school resource officer if you have one. That's what they're there for. You should be able to find somebody that you feel comfortable talking to them about what's going on. You don't want to just sweep it under the rug and think, well, if I ignore it, it'll go away, because it won't. Because if they're bullying or harassing you, they're going to do it to other kids. And that's the big thing is trying to do that. And if it does happen online, don't respond angrily saying, stop doing this. Just a very polite, please stop communicating with me, and then don't respond after that, but keep anything that you get if they continue the harassment or the bullying. If it's on Facebook, report them and block them. Most kids are afraid that Facebook is going to say, well, so-and-so blocked you and reported you, and they won't do that. They keep you anonymous as well. But you need to get that so that they aren't posting on your wall, they aren't sending you messages. Same thing in instant messaging. Block and report them. Because if you don't do it, they are going to do it to other people. And if you can't find somebody that you trust, you can go to our haltabusektd.org website and click on Need Help. And we have a questionnaire you can fill out, and one of our advocates will help you. Like I said, it's for free. We keep you anonymous. If you're still not comfortable with that, we have a couple of other options. We have Uncle Jim, who's Jim Mayer. He's the bass player for the Jimmy Buffett Band. And in his I guess, off-band life. He does this thing called I Am For You, and he does shows about bullying. And he has an email address on our website, and you can email him, or if you don't want to do that, we also have Phoebe the Cybercrime dog. She's my Siberian Husky, and she not only has a place on the website where you can send her comments or concerns, but she also has a Facebook page, and she has a Twitter account, and she has a lot of high school kids and middle school kids that are her friends, and she's helped quite a few kids on there because they feel more comfortable talking to a dog, I guess is the best way. And finally, if you're still not comfortable, and I'm giving 5 different things to, try, there's schooltipline.com. And if your school is listed there, you can report anonymously bullying or cyberbullying. So you have 5 options, and there's no reason to keep it inside and do something really stupid like kill yourself like so many kids have done in the past. I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, it's very sad whenever that happens. I mean, it's the worst thing, especially for families who they want to be able to help. And so, awareness is obviously, a big portion of this. So thank you for all the good work that you do to help people. So I think that one of the other things that we want to, try to help people with on the show as well, besides, basically reporting what's going on and trying to learn some lessons from it, is we also want to help keep you safe online, keep everybody safe online. And so one of the ways that we do that is we try to come up with some ways to keep your computer security safe, help to keep your identity safe online. And so not too long ago, as a matter of fact, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, there was a major hacking of LinkedIn, as well as another website that I think was in the same group. And there were over 6 million passwords that were hacked. And so one of the reasons why they were hacked was because of the very uncomplex, I don't know if that's a word or not, but very unsophisticated passwords that people were using, such as like 1234 was a password that people were using. That's just like, one of the really the most common passwords out there that people use, and it's also the easiest to hack. And so on the LinkedIn site, I have a list of the top passwords that people were using, and the number 1 was link. And so that's, it's going to basically let people into your LinkedIn account if they just have your email address and they have, what they guess to be your password. So obviously that's not good. Now, of course, if you have a bank account or something like that, people often still do use like just plain numbers, but there's a lot of websites are getting smarter now in terms of security and requiring you to have a more sophisticated password. So that's often pretty helpful. And I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but there's a lot more of this verification with additional information that they ask you, like what street did you grow up on, what was your favorite pet, and those are things that are very, very helpful in terms of security. But it's best to be proactive, and it's best to have a complex password that you can use no matter what site that you go to. And another thing is that if you do happen to have a password that you like to use, like a particular one like monkey, and you go and you use it on every website that you visit, if somebody figures out that your password is monkey on one website, then they take that same password and they go to another website, and the next thing you know, they're in your Facebook, they're in your bank account, and you've got some really big problems, and it's much easier to impersonate you if that's the case. And so what one of the things that I do is I educate people on how to have better computer security, and that's one of the features of our Internet Crime Report, is that we'll show you different ways that you can be more safe and secure online. And so today we're going to talk about how to have a more secure Internet password. And so quite simply, there are a number of do's and don'ts. For example, one of the don'ts that you want to keep in mind is don't use words or names. So if it's in the dictionary, don't use it. If it's a name, somebody's common name, like Lisa, don't use it. If it's L-E-E-S-A, well, that's not so bad. But if it's a common name, don't use it. Some do's would be to include numbers and to have a mix of upper and lowercase letters, and also to include special characters. And so by special characters, I mean ones that you'd find on your keyboard. So if you look at your keyboard and you see there's like a period, apostrophe, colon, exclamation mark, at symbol, pound sign, all of those, special characters that are not numbers and letters, you can use those. And so there's a great number of combinations that you can use. And I also have a way of developing very easy to remember passwords that are unique based on the website that you're visiting. And while it's true that one of the things that you could do is try to remember a particular favorite song or a favorite, expression or, anything that's easy for you to remember, which is, something that I have actually encouraged people to do over time, is to, try to think of your favorite song or your favorite movie or something like that and develop a password based on that. So I'm going to kind of give you a rundown on how to build a password. And so maybe one of the things, Jane, you and I can do would be to come up with a password for Phoebe, if that would be okay with you. So,
yeah.
So if, first of all, let's start off with a number. It can be a single digit or 2 digits. So what year was Phoebe born? Since Phoebe's a dog.
2006. It was 2006.
Okay.
So she's 5 now.
She's 5. She's going to be 6 this year. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so we could start with 06 as the beginning part of the password. That's pretty easy. And then the next part is going to be coming up with, let's say, at least 4 letters. And so you want to have a mix of those letters. And so quite simply, I would recommend going with like the first 2 letters of the first and last name. So Phoebe's name begins with the PH, and Phoebe's last name would be what?
Poulin.
Okay, so that's
P-O-U. P-O.
So PH and PO. So there you got 4 letters right there. And so if you mix them up, you can have uppercase P, lower H, uppercase P, lower O. So, pretty simple. And then the other thing we want to add is going to be a special character. So for example, maybe we could just use an exclamation mark. So it'd be 06 PH PO exclamation mark. Now that would be what I would call the root or core part of the password. And then if Phoebe were on Facebook, you would just add the first 5 letters of the website name, FACEB. And you can mix those up based on uppercase and lowercase in the same way. And of course, one of the things that you can do also is you can substitute letters with characters at any point if you like. So for example, where we have Facebook, you can replace the A with an @ symbol. And there's a number of different, letters that are commonly replaced as far as replacing a letter with a symbol, such as replacing an S with a $sign, since they look similar. And you can replace an X with an asterisk. There's a number of different things you can do. If it's an E, you can use a 3, which is like a backwards E. And so, that's a pretty simple way of having a unique password that's complex based on the website. So when Phoebe goes to another website like Twitter, it would be the same 06 PHPO exclamation mark and then TWITT. So that way, when Phoebe goes to that site, then, you can use a similar password, and it's not going to be an identical password whenever Phoebe goes from website to website. So that's my basic lesson on how to create a complex password that's going to be really difficult to crack, as opposed to one that's going to be very simple to crack. And based on people's habits in terms of coming up with different passwords that are, kind of simple, it's going to be a vast improvement over what it is that people typically use. So, Jane, is there anything else that we want to add this week? Next week we'll have another show, and we'll be talking about different topics.
I really can't think of anything, but I would suggest that if anybody has anything that they want to ask us, they can go onto the website, and you have a comment form there, I think, don't
Yes, there will be a comment form below.
Just send us suggestions if they have questions or whatever, and we can cover it. And if not, we'll come up with something.
Okay, yeah, we'll always be looking at the news to see what's new, to see what's interesting, looking for trends, looking for new things that people should be aware of. Facebook scams, there's a whole wealth of things that are out there for us to bring to you, to give you a little education and awareness, prevention, and security.
Yep. Of course, it's never going to be dull. That's for sure.
We'll definitely try to keep it interesting. So,
yes.
Jane, thanks for your time this week, and we'll see you again next week. And until next time, we'll see you on Internet Crime Report.
Okay, sounds good.